there's inevitably going to be a willingness to shoot down drones and a reluctance to shoot down manned aircraft because, of course, that will involve us in a shooting war with Russia in a very direct way.
Now, NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte has said member states should shoot down intruding Russian aircraft if so necessary. That's after President Trump encouraged allies to respond to incursions with force. In the last few weeks, many countries on NATO's eastern flank have been dealing with Russian planes and drones violating their airspace. And more drones gathered above an airport near an army base in Denmark overnight in what the Danish government is calling a professional campaign. Let's get the thoughts now of General Sir John McColl, former NATO Deputy Supreme Allied Commander. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
It feels like the world is particularly dangerous at the moment and potentially getting more so. Would that be your assessment?
I think that's right. And I also think that NATO leaders are right to be firm in their defence of NATO borders, but moving from the kind of robust language that you've heard from the Secretary General to shooting down manned aircraft as opposed to drones is a very big step. And I think a balance needs to be struck, and they will be very conscious of the balance that needs to be struck between robust language and engaging Russia in a shooting war and an armed conflict. I'd also point out that to engage a manned aircraft and to shoot down manned aircraft would involve an agreement on a set of ROE across the alliance. And of course, within the 32 member states of NATO, there are very differing views on the way in which we should approach the current difficulties with Russia.
Do you think there's an element here, and I'm slightly asking you to crystal ball gaze, but do you think there is an element here of let's use the tough language so hopefully we don't actually have to shoot anything down? The language will be enough.
I think there's a hope that that is the case. I think there's also a degree of ambiguity, deliberate ambiguity, in terms of what one says and what one is prepared to do. I think that's true in this particular case in terms of the ROE and the engagement of aerial incursions into NATO airspace. I think it's also true in terms of President Trump and his position in relation to his commitment to NATO and.
Now, that line seems to have deteriorated, which is slightly frustrating. I will try and re-establish that line to General Sir John McColl, because it sounds like there is a bit of a distinction being made there between what should be done with Russian drones violating airspace and manned aircraft. I think General Sir John McColl is back with us. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Sorry, do continue with the point that you were making.
The point I'm making is that there's an element of ambiguity in the position of the NATO states, and that is, I think, intentional. I think it's deliberate, and in many ways, I think it's helpful because it creates a degree of uncertainty in the mind of Putin, in the mind of the Russians. I think that's deliberate, and I think it's helpful.
It sounded to me that you were saying that there should possibly be a distinction made between shooting down drones and manned planes.
I think there's inevitably going to be a willingness to shoot down drones and a reluctance to shoot down manned aircraft because, of course, that will involve us in a shooting war with Russia in a very direct way.
What do you think the UK needs to be doing in this situation? Clearly a NATO member, but what should its role be right now?
Well, I think if you look at President Trump's recent speech on the Ukraine, a couple of things were very clear from that. But perhaps the major one was that he has lost patience with Putin, but he's also lost patience with the war. And therefore, Europe is largely on its own. And therefore, I think the UK's role should be to do all that it possibly can to reinforce the efforts of Europe, both economically and militarily, as well as politically, to support Ukraine and bring pressure to bear on Russia. So I think the UK has a very important role as a catalyst within NATO and within Europe to ensure that is the case, because Europe is very much, I think, standing alone. When I say alone, I mean apart from the United States. And the UK has a key leadership role within Europe, despite the fact of Brexit, to bring all the force of Europe to bear on Russia and in support of the Ukraine. So I think it's a key time.
Do you think that if NATO shoots down, and let's suggest it's a Russian drone at this point or a Russian manned aircraft, do you think that will end things, as happened with Turkey when it shot down a Russian aircraft that went into its airspace? Or do you think it begins a new stage of the conflict?
I think there will be a pause. And I think it would result in a reset of negotiations. I don't necessarily think it would lead directly to armed conflict, but I think it would definitely create that has the potential to trigger armed incursions elsewhere within Europe from a Russian point of view. So I think it will be a very dangerous step.
General Sir John McColl, thank you so much for joining us, former NATO Deputy Supreme Allied Commander.
Hello. How are you? Mr. President. Welcome. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
He's the toughest man there is, this guy. Fortunately, you guys are great at that. Same one I've had for years.
President, pleasure.
He never works out well without you, you know? You're not here, it never works out.
Hi, Dan. Good morning. I love your tie.
Hello.
Türkiye'den vereceğim.
Yes, I will give you another time when you come back to Turkey.
Nothing changes. See, nothing changes. That's what I don't like. They're too smart. Come on, we'll go in. Let's go into the Oval. You see a brand new, beautiful Oval Office. You see a substantially upgraded Oval Office from Biden. Biden had one painting. It was a president. He had no idea who the president was. You'll see something that you're like, come on in.
2, 1. Awesome.
Okay.
Mr. President, how was the meeting? Great. Great meeting. That was a great meeting. Just told it was.
But he closed.
We made a lot of deals.
But he shut.